Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hello, Duke fans, and welcome to episode 480 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. It is Saturday, January 21st, 2023, and Duke has a victory over the Miami Hurricanes. It was a 68-66 victory in Cameron Indoor Stadium. Jeremy Roach is back, and I don't know if he's better than ever, but he is certainly back for the Blue Devils. We have to talk about this big win for Duke. I am your host for this episode. I am Sam Klein. I'm joined as always by Donald Wine and Jason Evans. Jason, good afternoon, sir. How are you on this Saturday afternoon?
I'm happy to be talking about another Blue Devil victory. And, it's easy, I think, sometimes to think that Jeremy Roach isn't that important of a player. I think we've seen lately that is not the case. He is a very important player and was definitely one of the stars of this game. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for healing Jeremy Roach.
Donald Wine is also here. Donald, how are you feeling today?
Oh, that was a great win. I mean, I know we'll talk about it, but just again, a tough victory against a tough team, and it felt like a really big game in the sense of the season. And for us to come out victorious, makes me super happy.
Before we talk about the game, we need to address, I think, the news or somewhat lack of news that we've gotten in the last day about Duke Basketball Report podcast, the program that you are listening to right at this moment. So maybe you were up on this news yesterday on Twitter or elsewhere out in the world of media, but Vox Media, the parent company of SB Nation, the parent company of Duke Basketball Report, the brand to which we, the three of us, report for this podcast, decided to do some layoffs this week, including some of their contractors, of which all three of us are. So it is not clear at this exact moment what the status of the Duke Basketball Report podcast is. However, Donald, can you fill us in on what you heard yesterday from Vox?
Yeah, so yesterday morning, it was probably late in the morning, about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, I received an email. And now for those of you out there who know I do work on the soccer side, I am the manager of Stars and Stripes FC, the website, and I also host the podcast for that site. So I have a double dip situation where I'm kind of involved in two podcasts on the same parent company. And so I got an email saying that due to the, quote, economic climate, that they were scaling back their operations in a lot of different communities, and including many of the podcasts. And it was a generic email, and they said, your podcast is one of them. And so this email was basically from the SB Nation publisher, and it was sent to himself, and they BCC'd everyone who was supposed to have received it. I say that, and we'll talk about that part in a second. But for me, it creates confusion because I'm a part of two podcasts on the same network. So I responded back with, hey, which podcast are you referring to? And the answer that I received back from the publisher was that Duke Basketball Report, as well as Stars and Stripes SC, were both going to be affected by this, and that they would be ending, or at least the support by SB Nation would end on February 28th. Now, I say that everyone was supposed to have gotten this email. It turns out, as we kind of gathered information throughout the day, that I was the only one of these three who received this email, which creates the confusion, at least for our part, because as we list who is supposed to be on this show, Jason filled out the paperwork, so he was listed as lead contributor. Sam and I were listed as contributors. Jason should have received the same email that I did, but he did not. So while I say that to say, I mean, it was very clear from the response that I got that this program was one of the podcasts that was hit by these cuts. We are unclear as to what it means from an SB Nation standpoint now. And I think the other two will agree with me when I say this, that this program is not done. We are not ceasing operations or anything as of February 28th. It just means that come February 28th, we may have to be doing this show in a different direction. And that's the information that we kind of have right now. As we move forward, we're going to get some more information, and we'll keep you guys updated. Yeah, Jason.
Yeah. So it's worth noting, we've reached out to them again to say, can you clarify things? We're a little confused about this. The Duke Basketball Report podcast, the DBR podcast, is one of, I think we're like second or third among all college sports podcasts. We're far and away, like not even close. We're far and away the biggest college basketball podcast in the SB Nation family. And we know that they are keeping some podcasts, and it's at least a little bit surprising if they're keeping some that we wouldn't be in that list. But we haven't heard anything. Yes. Donald heard no. It's kind of strange that it didn't come to me, because I'm there. Usually when they reach out about anything, they reach out to me. So it's all kind of a weird mystery, and we're trying to figure it out. But again, to reiterate, bottom line, no matter what, if you skipped a little bit, I want you to make sure you get this part. We're not going away no matter what. If they stop supporting us, we will take this someplace else.
We'll find support somewhere else.
I assure all of you, you will be able to find us, and we will continue to be a part of your Duke basketball fandom. We would not give it up for the world.
And as far as we know, all of the notices that went out from Vox to not just podcast contributors, but as Donald mentioned, other site owners across SB Nation, all of those messages indicated that support will end from Vox on February 28th. So this is not a this week thing. This is not a today thing. So it seems like if anything's going to happen to us, it is unlikely to happen before February 28th, which means for you, the listener, this is all sort of your behind the scenes look at what we've been trying to figure out for the last day and a half. What does this mean for you, the listener? This feed will continue to have the Duke Basketball Report podcast, including the bites, through February 28th. We can guarantee that, or, as much as anyone can guarantee anything, right? After February 28th, you may have to resubscribe to us somewhere else. You may not. We will update you before then about what is going on, and we will tell you how to continue following the three of us wherever we exist out on the internet.
And just to finally reiterate Jason's reiteration of my iteration, this podcast, as we all know, was started back in 2014. It was started
we were here before
well before the site joined the SB Nation network. And even if this is the end of us on the SB Nation network, it is still not going to be the end. We've outlasted so many other podcasts, so many other sites. We will not be going anywhere because, again, we started out doing this for fun, and now we make enough money for each of us to Uber to a dinner a couple of times a month. Like that, we're not doing this for much at all. It's really by the community that you all out there have helped us build with this podcast. So because of that, and let's be clear, it's March Madness coming up. You think they're going to let us go before March Madness? You think we're just going to stop? Absolutely not.
Yo, let's get to the game, guys.
Let's get to the games.
Let's talk about the game, and we will certainly update you if there's more news on this front, in the coming weeks. But as I mentioned, Duke 68, Miami 66. This was a tight one all the way through. I think the greatest margin in this game was like Duke by 8. It never got too out of hand. Miami made a comeback in the second half there to make it close again. So it was a tight affair, but I think the highlight, at least for me, was that Jeremy Roach was back. Guys, let's start with headlines. Donald, I will let you go first. What is your headline from this game?
I got Band of Brothers weather the storm and tough Miami win.
All right, we went with a storm one. Jason, what did you have?
I got Roach returns, Blue Devils back in form.
And I also liked one of our listener suggestions from Ken Swanner that is very similar to the one that Jason just shared. So I'm going to take Ken's, which is Captain Roach back on deck as Duke weathers the hurricane. So we got Captain Roach in there in the middle of the hurricane. So guys, let's start with Jeremy Roach maybe, because he's back in action for Duke. He's been away for a few games. Don't worry, we will be getting to how cool Jaylen Blakes' face mask looked in this one. But Jason, talk to me about your impression of Jeremy Roach upon his return from injury. He did not start, but he played a significant role.
Yeah, we'd heard that Jeremy Roach might come back for this game. We then heard, he's going to be available. And the presumption was that he would play, he'd be on a limit minutes, a minutes limit. He would be on limited minutes. That's what I was trying to say. And that he would play maybe 15, perhaps 20 minutes. Turns out he plays 27, third most of anyone on the team. Look, I think maybe we'd forgotten about his shot making. I think maybe we'd forgotten how good it is to have a leader who is calm and cool and collected out there. I would like to point out that, in my opinion, the absolutely most important moment of the game was when Miami cut it to 2 with about 5 minutes left. And Jeremy Roach immediately made a very difficult layup. And then moments later, he makes a good defensive play on Isaiah Wong, forcing an air ball. And then literally on the very next possession, he makes an incredibly unselfish pass. The defense comes to him. He passes to Tyrese Proctor on the wing for a wide open 3 that pushes Duke's lead back out to 7. Now, I want to be clear. I know that Miami cut closer as in the final couple minutes, and that this was a 1-possession game at the very end. I still think that sequence, those 3 plays back to back by Jeremy Roach, were the most important part of the game, because it gave Duke the cushion that allowed Duke to hang on down the stretch. The difference in leading by 2 and leading by 7, pretty big, especially with a team that is young, a team that has struggled to hold on to leads. Look, we blew a late lead against Kansas. We blew a late lead against Clemson. We've seen it happen to this team a fair number of times. And having Jeremy Roach out there, as healthy as he's been in probably a month, was a very big deal. And man, by the way, I know you guys want to get in, but for Miami, remember the last time there was a experienced Duke player who had been hurt for a little while, who came back? They were like, oh, maybe they can play in this game. It'll be a home game. He'll play against Miami. It was Ryan Kelly who that's a legendary game. Jeremy Roach comes back in this game, hits 5 of his first 5 shots, and it looked like he's going to have another Ryan Kelly kind of game. I feel sorry for Miami. Miami never wants to see the player come off the injured reserve list for Duke ever again.
And Jeremy Roach had some of the biggest highlights in this game. He had a few really nifty drives to the basket where he was dodging around and going through Miami players. And as you said, Jason, seemed like he was keeping everything under control for John Shire. Shire mentioned at the break how excited he was that Jeremy Roach was playing that well. Donald, did you have anything else on Jeremy Roach or any other players that you wanted to highlight here in the good?
Yeah, well, firstly on Jeremy Roach, Jason, you mentioned as we came in, you're like, hey, he was playing better than he's ever played before. But honestly, we all know that he was playing better than he has, and he looked solid out there. And I think, the 4-game break or whatever.
He looked healthy. That was the thing.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, oh, he missed 3 games. It's not really true, because he was not himself late in December. This has been nagging him for a while.
Well, I was going to say the rest did him well, because remember, he had a rest period during December where he kind of missed the game and took 10 days off. But it was clear that they not only were able to work on resting it, but also able to work on re-strengthening it and getting it back to where he could, log some heavy minutes. Because I think the one place where he, forget all the other stats, the one place that we needed him in this game was leadership. And it's not that we didn't have leaders on the floor, but this was an experienced veteran Miami team and has some guys that can, we've seen over the years, like Isaiah Wong and Wooga Poplar. We've seen these guys over the years. And Jeremy Roach was one of the only guys on this team that knew how to play them and knew how to, play up on them. And I think, him being in the game contributed to Isaiah Wong not having his best game, which is kind of what did Miami in, especially down the stretch. Like these sort of little things were why we needed Jeremy Roach out there. And yes, Jason, I think the best part is besides leadership is, yes, he looked healthy doing it and he played healthy and he was able to do some things. My favorite play, spoiler alert, involved Jeremy Roach on a play that actually didn't happen. But it showed me that how healed he was, at least at this point, from the injury and from the toe. And hopefully now, like from this, it's a baseline to get better because, we have a game in less than, a little over 48 hours. He's going to have to test it again. But I think this time around, test, pass with flying colors.
Another guy who had a great game today, it feels like has been getting better the last few weeks. Maybe Duke doesn't need him as crucially as they do when Jeremy Roach is out, but Tyrese Proctor seems to be getting more into the flow, particularly on offense, where he still misses a couple shots, but you guys tell me if you agree. Tyrese Proctor seems like his shot is much more in rhythm. He's making threes where there were a couple threes he made today where he gets the pass and I thought, oh yeah, that one feels like it's going in, which is not something I've thought about Tyrese Proctor to this point in the season. He goes 3 for 7 from three, but I think he'll have a better game from three the rest of the way. But that's an awesome performance from Proctor. Does a good job with the ball handling today. Only one turnover and has the ball in his hands.
I'll take
a fair amount.
I'll take 3 for 7. I'll take 3 for 7 from three any day for this Duke team. That's big.
And like I said, I think it'll get better from there. He won't be better than that every night because that's still a pretty good percentage. But Tyrese Proctor looks like he is much more comfortable than he was early in the season. Jason, I know you wanted to highlight Dereck Lively, who also had an outstanding game for Duke.
Guys, I got a question for you about Dereck Lively. Does it count as a 10-5-5 game if you get 10 rebounds, 6 points, and 5 blocks? That's a 10-5-5 game.
So no, because at the beginning of the season, I asked this very question and y'all said no. So we're going to call it a 5-10-5 game. That's what he did. He had a 5-10-5.
Which means that we still haven't had one, right?
We still haven't had one, but the 10 has to be points is what we declared at the beginning of the season. So we had a 5-10-5.
I do remember us saying that now, but I thought Dereck Lively was outstanding in this game. And I want to remind you guys, literally a week ago when we were talking about Clemson, I said Dereck Lively's going to have 10 rebounds and 5 block shots. Actually, I said 10 points and 5 block shots in the game before the end of the month. Well, he had his 5 block shot game today. He almost got his 10. He only got 6 points. He probably should have had 10 points with all the gimmies that he missed inside of 2 feet.
Dereck Lively going 3 for 9 from the field is a really tough look.
Well, and by the way, he went 3 for 9 because there are at least a couple possessions where he got 3 shots and he ended up making the third one. The first 2 missed, and then he ended up making the third one. But regardless, his activity, let's not talk about the offense because dude clearly still struggles to put the ball in the basket, even when he is almost unguarded from 3 or 4 feet. But his activity on defense, he makes loud block shots. Like his block shots are he has a
lot of attempted block shots too.
Yeah.
He had one where like you saw him just rush up, and I think it was one where he just slapped the backboard just a second too late and was just like, all you hear is da. A lot of his grunts on blocks make it where you just kind of go, ooh, dang, like come on, Dereck, like be careful.
Was it just me, Donald, or did it seem like they had the mics, the ones that are on the basket? Those
they were turned up.
Seemed like they were turned up today because like every dunk was pretty loud, which also means that Dereck Lively's activity is very loud.
The dude is clearly he's a defensive menace. And I wanted to note as well, I think it was the BC game. I don't remember which game it was. There's a game very, very recently. Maybe it was Clemson. Anyway, Duke had a possession, the opposing team had a possession in the final minute, final 30 seconds where we left Ryan Young in the game. We talked about this in the podcast. We left Ryan Young in the game. We didn't bring Dereck Lively in to play defense on what was clearly a defensive possession where there would be no offensive possession afterwards. Someone was going to get like that at the very least. And I said, at the time, I was like, if Dereck Lively can't even help you on defense on a possession like that, then you have to start to question, okay, what's he contributing? Well, in this game, they had a possession. Miami has a possession with less than 20 seconds left. And John Shire looked down the bench and pointed to Dereck Lively and was like, get in there for Ryan Young. And Shire was playing a little bit of offense defense with Ryan Young and Dereck Lively. That's an advancement for Dereck Lively. That is more than what he has been doing lately. And I noticed, by the way, in this game, very early in the second half, that they brought Ryan Young out and Lively came in, and Lively stayed in for a long stretch of the game. We're recording this so close to game time that I haven't seen the plus minus. I think that Dereck Lively's plus minus, we've talked about this. His plus minus has been really good lately. This is going to be, I guarantee you, this is going to be another game where Dereck Lively has an impressive plus minus. It's starting to like Duke is maybe a better team with him on the floor than when he's not on the floor, which is a big change from where Dereck Lively was earlier in the season.
Jason, Dereck Lively's plus minus. You ready for this?
Hit me.
So sometimes stats do not tell the story. His plus minus was 0. And I don't think it should be. Like, that's
how
I don't know. Yeah, his plus minus was 0.
I'm surprised at that.
Yeah,
I mean, the plus minus of the game was only 2. So, but
still,
to your point, he did seem very active today. We hope that he continues on that trajectory. The other player, of course, I think that I need to shout out today is Kyle Filipowski, who continues just to be an absolute menace. Again, doesn't have his best shooting day. He's only 5 for 12 from the field, but he made a big 3 and was key down the stretch for Duke, both in terms of hitting shots, but also going after the ball and drawing contact and sort of doing all of the hustle things that Duke needed to win. He didn't make all the free throws that we needed him to make at the end, and maybe we'll talk in the bad a little bit about missing crucial free throws that almost resulted in disaster, but.
Oh, that wasn't on Lively. That wasn't on Lively. That was on...
No, Filipowski and Roach.
I mean, sorry, it wasn't on Filipowski.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. I didn't think he missed. In fact, he made 2 key free throws down the stretch.
He did, yeah.
It was Roach and Proctor who missed big free throws.
Right. But not perfect in the way that that he usually is. So a pretty awesome return to form for Filipowski. It feels so ho-hum at this point, but he pulled down 14 rebounds today.
How can a dude do a 17 and 14 and us not like immediately lead the podcast?
We weren't like, oh my God, Kyle Filipowski, what a monster.
Maybe if he gets 20 rebounds, maybe we'll talk about him first, Jason.
Dude, he's got it. I'll do another bold prediction before the season's done. I think he's got a 20-20 game in him, which is just absurd. It's
20 rebounds is a lot, especially on a team where Duke really has 3 bigs who are capable of playing significant minutes. Like Ryan Young has maybe one of his worst games of the season, because he's only pulling down 5 rebounds today. He only scores 2 points. Not that Duke needed as much from him, but yeah, it's hard for Filipowski to just be in there long enough and to get enough touches to get 20 rebounds. So, you know what, Jason, I'll take you up on the bet. I don't think Kyle Filipowski is having a 20 rebound game this season. I think that's a lot. Donald, did you have anything else in the good that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, the ball movement I thought was terrific this afternoon. 19 assists on 25 made baskets. Jacob Grandison had 6 of them. And it felt like everyone had an assist. I don't know if that's the case from the stats, but it felt like everyone was able to get other people involved on a made basket. So
Mark Mitchell and Dereck Lively are the 2 players assists. Everyone else has an assist.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's fair, right? Because Dereck Lively is not called on to pass the ball. He gets the ball inside of a foot, so he needs to shoot it. But I think when it comes to moving the basketball, that's something that's kind of lagged a little bit lately. We haven't had a lot of assists lately. In fact, I think, was it last weekend against Clemson, we only had like 9 assists. Now we have 19. So I think those moving the basketball around was something that I knew was going to be necessary for us to play well. And again, we mentioned some of the shots that we've missed before. We shot 42% from 3-point land today. One of the best outputs we've had this season. So, Jason, you were talking about last game against Clemson where we could have had more assists because guys were missing open 3-pointers. We made some of those today, and I think some of those were the difference down the stretch.
So regarding the ball movement, yeah, it was crisper, more confident than we've seen. There was a sequence in the first half that I adored. Tyrese Proctor was open on the wing, and the defense came to him, and so he realized Jacob Grandison had a better shot, and so he passed down to Grandison in the corner, and the defense, credit to Miami, adjusted beautifully and went after Grandison. and Grandison immediately flipped it back to Proctor, who buried the three-pointer. It was the kind of exterior perimeter passing that just shows guys feeling really comfortable with themselves and good awareness of where players are supposed to be.
Say, Jason, there was a lot more. You mentioned the play between Grandison and Proctor. There's a lot more skip passes as well. A lot of times where guys were on opposite wings and flashing it to the opposite corner. Jacob Grandison, I believe, had a three from the corner, and where he was just kind of chilling there in the cut, and everyone was loaded up on one side, and we were able to find him on the other side. Proctor, I think, had another shot. I don't think that was a 3-pointer, but at least we got a basket out of it where he made a skip pass and was able, someone was able to drive the lane and get 2 points. So I think the skip passes is funny, right? Because in Cameron, it feels like it's more compact because of how small Cameron is. You go to like an NBA court, you feel like there's all the room in the world, and you don't see the skip passes the way you do, like you did this afternoon in Cameron. So good on them to get the ball moving around, and really hopefully helps that confidence in trying to find each other to make baskets.
Spoiler alert, a skip pass will be my favorite play later on.
There we go.
The interesting thing to me is that it wasn't like it was Jeremy Roach initiating all of that. Like, Roach didn't have to be on the court for all of that good passing to happen. It just feels like all of a sudden, as you guys mentioned, Proctor and Grandison, all these guys all of a sudden were like, oh, we're playing offense with each other. Great. Let's do that. And I don't know if it was the days off where John Shire was like, guys, we're installing some offensive sets here that we haven't gotten to yet this season, but it felt great. Let's take a quick break, and we will be back to talk about the bad. Of course, there are still things that Duke needs to improve on from this game, and certainly looking ahead, there are some tough ones coming up. We also need to recap the week with our player of the week and give you our play of the game, so stick around. We are back, and we are talking about the bad. Donald, I want you to start us off. Duke has not quite turned the corner on having like an efficient game from the field. 40% of their field goals made overall, a pretty decent showing from three, 42% from three, which means that the 2-point shooting today was abysmal for Duke. Jason already mentioned that Dereck Lively missed a few bunnies, but he was not the only one. What was going on out there?
I don't know, actually. And it's weird because a lot of times we were in good positions to make some of these layups. And I remember, Dariq Whitehead had a play where he drove the lane. He was able to get wide open, and he did everything great, and then kind of tried to do like a floater that was supposed to bank in, and he just didn't float it right. So it banked off the rim for a miss. And there's a couple of guys, and you mentioned kind of the bunnies inside. There's a lot of misses from inside of like 5 feet. And I think that's just, it's a combination of like concentration, like rushing the shot, and just, not focusing on putting the ball in the basket. And also sometimes it's hesitation. Sometimes you're in that, especially, I can't speak for 7-footers, but there are times where you see 7-footers kind of go up, and they have this look in their face as if to say, I could lay this in or I could dunk it. But they're trying to figure it out on the way up. And that's not the time you're supposed to figure that out. You're supposed to do that before you jump, because then you either dunk it hard or you lay it in off the glass. And it felt like a lot of times they were hesitating, and that split second of hesitation is what caused them to miss some of these bunnies.
I was disappointed because with 10 minutes left in this game, Duke was up by 8, and it felt like a lot of the momentum had swung towards the Blue Devils, and we were going to get, a good Cameron Indoor Stadium 20-point victory for Duke where they look dominant, and against a Miami team that currently is ranked, that came in. I don't think Miami was favored in this game, but certainly came in feeling a little good about themselves. And I thought Duke was going to end up running away with this. And then all of a sudden, as you mentioned, Donald, Duke just starts missing these easy shots, and Miami is able to close the gap all the way down to 2 very quickly. And so what turned into a game where Miami had a chance at a last shot to win this game, technically.
Yeah.
Duke was up and in control midway through the second half. And a lot of that, I think, is owed to Duke not being able to hit those easy shots, because it's not like all of a sudden Miami turned into a scoring machine. There were a couple guys from Miami today who were really feeling their shots, But overall, it's not like the Miami offense was so efficient. They did manage to pull down some offensive rebounds. They did manage to sort of claw back, but the Miami offense was by no means a juggernaut this afternoon.
Yeah. By the way, we probably should have covered this in the good. We talked about Duke, about Dereck Lively blocking 5 shots. Duke has 8 blocked shots in this game, which is a pretty good number. Did you guys see what Miami's 2-point field goal percentage was? They were 12 of 42, 28% on 2-point field goals. So Duke did an incredible job inside the 3-point arc of bothering Miami, forcing them into difficult shots. But
Jason, that's keeping in mind that, remember, Miami was one of the top 10, teams in the country in offensive efficiency, and they have a guy in the paint who was making like 67% of his shots. Like, they were inside the paint or something like that. They were like 67%, and they were hitting 28% today. That's pretty good defense.
Okay, but to take it back to the bad, it is worth noting, if you look at Ken Palm, the average Division I team hits right at 50% of their 2-point field goals. That's right on 50%. So if you want to be above average, and again, this is every team in Division I, and if you're a good team, you need to be above average at a lot of things. If you want to be above average, you have to hit more than half your shots, half your 2-point shots. Gentlemen, do you know how many Duke players in this game hit more than half of their 2-point field goals? The answer is 1. Jeremy Roach is the only guy. Roach was 5 of 7 on 2-point field goals. The only guy on the team to hit more than half of his 2-point shots. We already mentioned Dereck Lively was 3 of 9. Dariq Whitehead was 1 of 6. Mark Mitchell was 1 of 4. This is on 2-point shots. Duke's just got to get better. A team that plays inside out. We like to go inside so that it opens up the outside. And that's not going to work unless we're hitting our 2-point shots. We already mentioned earlier on that Ryan Young, just didn't seem to do very much at all in this game. It was very strange. It was like Ryan Young reverting back to, I don't know, a month and a half ago or something like that, at least. I'm not sure. This may have been his worst game of the entire year. And like I said, Whitehead and Mitchell, I thought, struggled a lot. I don't think they were particularly good on defense, and they were net negatives on offense, even though Dariq Whitehead hit that absurd 40-footer, which ended up being the difference in the game, by the way. that buzzer beater from half court is the reason, technically the reason that Duke won this game.
So, Jason, you mentioned that the 2-point average for the country is right around 50%, and you want to be a little bit higher than that. Keep in mind that most teams who are considered pretty efficient from offense are hitting closer to 60% of their 2-point buckets. But if you think about what is considered to be, an efficient shooting person, right, or player, it's 50% from the floor, 40% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line. Yeah. And we've demonstrated we can shoot the ball well from the free throw line as a team. We normally do that. We normally don't have issues with that. And if you're going to not shoot 40% from 3, if you're going to shoot less than that, that means you have to uptick it on the 2 points so that you can still get around 50% from the floor in general. And we're not getting close to that. And a lot of it is because, again, this is a day where we actually shot pretty well from 3, but the bunnies inside were just frustrating because, as you both mentioned, we had a big lead. We had built a lead through the fact that we were hitting 3-pointers and that we were getting to the line and making free throws. And then the missed bunnies let Miami creep back into it.
The other bad that I did want to mention, this Duke team does seem to struggle to close out teams. We had numerous opportunities to, if not slam the door, at least gently shut it in Miami's face. And, Donald, you mentioned the missed free throws, the missed front ends of 1-and-1s in the final minute. I mean, those will make you tear your hair out. And honestly, that possession that Miami had with like 30 seconds left, or less than 30 seconds left, where they got like 4 shots, a couple of them, they were getting, they ended up not hitting any of them, and Duke ended up getting the rebound, and that preserved the win. But that was a possession where they were only down 2, and Duke needed to get a rebound. When Miami missed, we needed to get a rebound, and Miami kept on getting offensive rebounds. I was not in a good place. Let's just put it that way, as that was going down.
The offensive rebounding for Miami was good. The defensive rebounding for Duke was bad, but the defense for Duke was good because it felt like Duke wasn't rattled by the fact that Miami kept getting the ball back because they kept recovering to play defense and trying to get the ball.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's a weird sequence to watch that Duke ends up coming out on top on. But as you mentioned, Jason, because rebounding has been such a strength for Duke this season, it felt weird that was almost the thing that doomed the Blue Devils this afternoon.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that on the whole, we had a good rebounding game. I mean, Miami ends up with 38 rebounds and Duke ends up with 44, which is, we topped them fairly easily in rebound. We grabbed almost 40% of our misses. Our offensive rebounding, once again, was one of the strengths of this team. But yeah, those moments down the stretch, and it's been a problem for this Duke team repeatedly. I don't need to belabor it, but closing out games is a place where this team, we should honestly probably have at least one or two more victories on the season if we closed out the final 3 or 4 minutes of games better than we have.
If I wanted to mention one more bad, and I think it may be more injury related than anything, but Jaylen Blakes also was mostly absent from this game, probably because he's playing with a very cool face mask, but playing with a face mask for the first time because of his nose injury from a few days ago in practice. But I hope that Blakes is sort of back to full strength at some point soon. We haven't seen Duke at full strength yet this season. We don't know what it's like when Jaylen Blakes is on the floor with Jeremy Roach, both feeling healthy. We haven't seen that in a while. And especially with Tyrese Proctor's offense coming on, it feels like the team could be able to turn a corner once everyone is healthy again.
Jaylen Blakes had 5 minutes on the floor. He did not attempt a shot, did not foul anyone. He still managed to get an assist and a +7 rating. Like how? Literally, I think he touched the ball once and that was the assist. Like that's all he did.
He was one assist from a 5 trillion.
But I think the one thing is, I think over the next couple of days, they mentioned on the broadcast that they could have done a surgery to kind of set his nose and fix his nose. And he said, they said if he had done that, he wouldn't be able to get the mask in time. He said, yo, just snap it back into place, put the mask on me, and then we'll figure out about fully fixing it later. So you may see him with the mask on for a few days as he gets that nose fully fixed.
Real psycho stuff to take that approach.
Yo,
just
hey guys,
for the record.
If I break my nose, don't slap me in the nose until I fix it. Don't put a mask on me like that. I can wait.
Super weird. I don't know how I feel about that. Guys, can we do our plays of the game from this one? I don't want to belabor the bad too much. So Jason, give me your play of the game, and then we're going to do players of the week after this.
I mean, it's easy. There are a lot of huge plays down the stretch, and it feels weird to have your play of the game come from very, very early on. But my favorite play, just under 17 minutes left in the first half. We showed great patience and ball movement. Dariq Whitehead got the ball on the wing. He looked inside, and Ryan Young was down there, and Ryan Young had this gravitational pull. Like everybody on the Miami team was sure Dariq Whitehead was going to dump the ball into Ryan Young, and you saw all of them begin to edge in that direction. Instead, Dariq Whitehead, seeing that it was clogged up down there, threw the ball cross court to a cutting Kyle Filipowski, who had a vicious slam dunk, wide open, very easy slam dunk. I thought it was just great awareness. It showed, again, and we've talked about this, it showed the team recognizing where they need to move, where they need to be, and how to get into the right places. It's something we haven't seen a ton of from Duke. And I immediately identified that play. I was like, something's going to have to be really great to knock that off from my favorite play. And it stayed there till the end of the game.
So mine is, again, it was a non-play, but I thought it was interesting. So Roach, in the second half, he had the ball close to the corner, but not quite fully in the corner. And he was by the Duke bench, and he started to make this move to basically jab step past his defender, and his defender bid on it. So he did basically a spin move that I'm talking if we were in a court in the gym, or on the court in a pickup court on the street, everybody would have run onto the court. He juked this dude out of his socks, ankles, and shoes, except for the fact that in the process of doing this, man fouled Roach. So, but at the same time, Roach, all of a sudden he turned and he did the spin move and all of a sudden was like, there's nobody here except for the basket. And he was able to lay it in, but of course they had called the foul well before that, so it didn't count. But it led me to believe that Jeremy Roach is way better and way more healthy with his toe than he was about 3 weeks ago. And that gives me promise, because him being able to do a move like that was something that he could do, but he didn't try to do early in the season, mainly because of how injured and how hurt, how painful that toe was. But that shows me that he, at least for that moment, there was no pain. And if he can pull off moves like that and get open, that's going to, really boost everybody's mojo around there.
Yeah, this is not apparently the Kyrie Irving situation where the thing is just going to linger and we can't ever figure out how to get him back on the court. So I'm glad about that. Guys, you've given me the opportunity to take the ridiculous Dariq Whitehead nearly half-court bank shot three-pointer with the shot clock expiring. And the only reason that I am taking it is for Dariq Whitehead's presence of mind after he made the shot to hang his head in shame that he had just airballed the previous shot 7 seconds earlier. So I want to applaud not just the effort on getting the rebound and getting the ball back out to him. I think it was Filipowski that was like falling out of bounds to cover that missed shot. But the fact that Whitehead made it and then was like, I'm not going to celebrate this, even though that was cool, because I need to be embarrassed about the shot that I had taken previously. And and not only that, I banked it in. So I really didn't earn this one.
He missed that first 3-pointer by a good 3 or 4 feet. That was like one of the worst misses of the entire game. Now the shot clock was running down. There's kind of, it was a desperation kind of shot, but the shot clock wasn't running down so much that there wasn't time for someone to grab a rebound, be falling out of bounds, throw it to half court, and him get off another shot. It was like he missed that first shot bad. That is a classic. That's terrible. Oh wait, that's great. In a span of like 2 seconds.
Dariq, I'm gonna help you out here. Everyone else sarcasm meter is on. All right. First shot was not a shot, it was a pass. He doesn't miss shots by 3 feet if he wasn't trying to pass someone underneath. So I'm gonna let that slide. But also the fact that he recognized that this pass didn't go where I wanted it to be, so I'm gonna hit this bank shot. It's called self-awareness. Man was like, hey, I can't really fully celebrate this. And what we call that in the scheme of life is growth. That man had some growth at this moment. He was like, hey, I made the shot, but I missed the one I was supposed to because I was trying to pass to my boy down front. And next time I'm just going to hit this bank shot because the banks are always open on Saturdays.
A mature reaction from the freshman. So guys, let's move to our player of the week. It's one game. We only have to talk about the Miami game today. So Donald, give me your player of the week for Duke's win against Miami.
So this is very difficult because a lot of guys I thought had some really good performances. I thought long and hard during the game, obviously, because we were recording shortly afterwards about Jeremy Roach. But I can't overlook 17 and 14, so I'm going to give it to Flip.
Guys, my player of the game is Jeremy Roach. I don't know. I'm not sure how you pick anybody but Jeremy Roach. Player of the week, player of the game, you name it. To come back from injury and play that well, hit 5 of 5, played good defense, moved the ball around really well. And I talked earlier about that sequence he had where he hit that tough layup, played good defense and forced an air ball, and then made a key pass to Tyrese Proctor as the most important stretch of the game. Jeremy Roach, clearly player of the game, player of the week, player of the, you name it.
Jason, I'm with you. I have to go with Jeremy Roach for the way that he was able to return from injury with such a loud performance against Miami. So that's it. We are going to be back very soon to preview Duke's next game. As Donald mentioned, it is a quick turnaround for Duke. They are going to face Virginia Tech on Monday evening. That game is in Blacksburg, which is, we all know, is a tough place to play. So we're going to preview that in a separate episode on a DBR Bite, as we have introduced. It's great. I love, guys, by the way, that we introduced DBR Bites the same week that apparently everything is getting blown up at our parent company here. Like we're trying new stuff. We're trying to innovate. We're taking things in a different direction, and apparently they're not listening. So we'll be back to discuss the Virginia Tech game. We will be back to discuss anything related to this potential change with the podcast, which, by the way, for all of you out there, all of this might just end up being absolutely nothing, because if we're still able to post on this same feed, then we're just going to keep doing the show. And maybe you'll hear some different ads, or we may bring back sponsorships or something, but it may all just be a nothing burger to everybody who's listening to this. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for everything else. Email us, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. We were able to get some headlines in for this one. I was able to read one on the air, which means that people are sending those headlines immediately after the game because we are recording. It is like 3:30 Eastern now as we're wrapping up, and the Duke game ended at like 2:00. So we got this one out, or at least we recorded right after this one ended. So thank you to everyone for sending us the headlines and your thoughts about the game. We will be back again soon. For Jason Evans, for Donald Wine, I am Sam Klein. This has been episode 480 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. Duke Band, take us home.